The rain fell in heavy sheets, turning the once bright alien city into a shadow of itself. Buildings burned in the distance, their sharp spires cracking under the heat of explosions. The ground shook again as another strike hit, sending shards of metal clattering across the empty street. Ethan Vos moved quickly, his boots splashing through puddles, rifle low, eyes scanning for movement. This mission had been meant for peace. He had arrived only 2 days ago as part of a diplomatic escort. Now it was a battlefield. He turned a corner and froze. Ahead, under the glow of a broken street lamp, a group of armored warriors surrounded someone. She was on her knees, her armor cracked and smoking from a recent blast. Silver white hair spilled over her face, her skin a deep shade of violet marked with faint glowing lines. Even through the rain, Ethan could see the defiance in her eyes as she tried to stand again. The largest of the warriors shoved her back down, laughing in a guttural language Ethan didn't understand. Then something slid across the wet ground. Toward him a sword. Its curved blade shimmered faintly, etched with intricate runes. Without thinking, Ethan crouched and picked it up. The grip was warm, almost alive, fitting his hand perfectly despite its alien design. The warriors noticed him instantly. One stepped forward with a mocking grin, raising his weapon. Ethan's instincts took over. He moved in a quick arc, the sword slicing clean through the gap in the enemy's armor. The alien dropped without a sound. Another came at him from the side, but the sword felt weightless in his hands. He turned, letting the rain wash over his face, and drove the blade forward with precision. The second warrior staggered and fell. The last of them hesitated, glancing between Ethan and the woman on the ground. That pause was enough for her to surge forward, grabbing a fallen spear and thrusting it deep into the enemy's chest. Silence followed, broken only by the rain. Ethan and the woman stood there, both breathing hard, water dripping from their weapons. She looked at him, then at the sword in his hand, and something in her expression changed. She stepped forward, placing her palm against the flat of the blade, speaking softly in her own tongue. He couldn't understand the words, but her voice carried weight almost like a vow. From the shadows more figures appeared. They wore similar armor to hers, though their colors were darker and marked with the same symbols as the sword. They didn't raise their weapons. Instead, they stared at Ethan with a mix of shock and respect. One of them said something quickly to the woman, who nodded before taking Ethan's arm. "You hold my clan's sword," she said in broken English. Her voice was steady despite her exhaustion. "You fight for me. You save me. You claim me." Ethan frowned. "I was just helping." She shook her head firmly. "No, in my people's law, to fight with the clan's blade for one of us. It is binding. You are one with me now." Before Ethan could reply, a distant rumble shook the ground. More explosions lit the skyline, and in the distance, heavy troop carriers descended. The woman pulled him toward the approaching soldiers from her side. They surrounded him, not in hostility, but in a protective formation. As they moved through the rain-soaked streets, Ethan noticed the way every warrior's eyes drifted to the sword in his grip. The woman never let go of his arm. Even injured, she walked with authority, her head held high. When they reached the gates of a damaged fortress, the guards there stepped aside immediately. Inside, the air was warmer, the fires kept low. Warriors lined the walls, watching as the two entered. She led him to a raised platform and finally let go of his arm. "My name is Kayla," she said. "You will speak it when the council asks who you stand with." Ethan looked down at the sword, still unsure why it felt like it belonged to him now. He didn't know what this council was, or why Kayla spoke as if their lives were suddenly tied together. But something in her eyes told him this was more than a battlefield rescue. It was the start of something he didn't understand yet, but could not walk away from. The fortress hall was lit by tall fire basins that cast long shadows against the stone and metal walls. The air smelled faintly of rain, smoke, and something sharp that Ethan couldn't name. Alien warriors lined the edges of the room, their armor scratched from battle, their eyes watching him with silent intensity. At the far end, a wide platform rose above the floor, and upon it sat 7 figures in ceremonial armor. Kayla led Ethan toward them without slowing, her steps steady despite the wound at her side. The warriors on the platform looked older, their faces lined with years and battle scars. Their armor bore more intricate markings than the rest. Ethan felt every eye in the room tracking him as he approached. One of the elders, a tall figure with deep crimson skin and a voice like stone grinding against stone, spoke first. The words were in their own language, sharp and heavy. Kayla answered, in the same tongue, her voice firm but respectful. Ethan stood still, gripping the sword loosely, trying to follow the exchange. He couldn't understand the words, but he could read the body language, the elder's suspicion, Kayla's insistence, the murmurs that rippled among the others. Finally, the elder switched to broken English. Human, you take up the blade of Clan Vera. You spill blood in its name. You save the daughter of the High Line. Do you know what you have done? Ethan hesitated. I saved someone in trouble, that's all. A few warriors near the wall murmured in disapproval. The elder's eyes narrowed. Not all. This blade is not just weapon. It is vow. When one who is not of the clan takes it to defend one of our blood, it binds them to the blood they save. You have made bond of life. You are Kayla's chosen. The words hit him like a physical weight. He looked at Kayla, but she did not look away. I told you, she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. Where I'm from, saving someone doesn't mean marriage. The elder's expression hardened. This is not your world. Our law is older than your stars. If you reject, you dishonor the clan. And dishonor is met with blood. The meaning was clear. Either accept or die here. The room's tension tightened like a noose. Ethan could feel the heat from the braziers on his face, hear the soft hiss of armor shifting as warriors adjusted their stance. Kayla stepped forward, placing herself between Ethan and the council. She spoke quickly in their language, her tone sharper now. Some of the elders frowned, others nodded slightly. When she finished, she turned to him. They will not harm you if you agree. You need not live as one of us. But you will be under my protection, and I under yours. It wasn't much of a choice. Ethan took a slow breath. Fine, I agree. The elder stood, raising a hand toward him. 2 warriors stepped forward and brought a shallow bowl filled with dark liquid. Another placed a small ceremonial blade in Kayla's hand. She turned to Ethan, holding the blade out. You cut palm. We bind our blood to the sword. It is the seal. Ethan stared at the blade, then at her. The silver of her eyes held no trickery, only the weight of their law. Slowly, he took the blade, sliced his palm, and watched as a drop of his blood fell into the bowl. Kayla did the same. The elder dipped the clan sword into the mixture, the runes along its edge glowing faintly as if alive, when the blade was returned. To Ethan, the hall erupted in a single thunderous chant. The sound reverberated through the walls, deep and primal. Warriors struck their armor with their fists in unison, the sound echoing like drums. Kayla turned to him, her voice low. It is done. From this moment, you are Vera. The chanting stopped as quickly as it began. The elder stepped down from the platform. You are bound to her. Her enemies are yours. Her honor is yours. Her life is yours to guard, as yours is hers. If she dies, you die. If you fall, she falls. Ethan felt the weight settle in his chest. He wasn't just part of their tradition, now he was locked into it with no way out. As the council dismissed the gathering, Kayla led him toward a quieter hall. The walls here were carved with ancient murals, battles and oaths from centuries past. She stopped in front of one, depicting a warrior holding the same sword he now carried. "The first to take the blade," she said. "He was not born to the clan either, but he became one of our greatest leaders." Ethan studied the mural. "And how did his story end?" Kella's eyes lingered on the image for a moment before she answered. "In battle, beside the one he claimed." They walked in silence for a time, the sounds of the fortress fading behind them. Outside, the rain still fell, but the fires in the city seemed fewer now. Ethan didn't know if that meant the battle was ending or only paused. What he did know was that nothing about his mission was simple anymore. Kayla stopped at a heavy door and pushed it open. Inside was a small chamber lit by a single hanging lantern. "You will stay here," she said. "Rest. Tomorrow you will learn what it means to be one of us." Ethan stood in the doorway, the sword heavy in his hand, the cut on his palm still stinging. "And if I don't want to be one of you?" Her voice was calm, but unyielding. "Then you should not have picked up the blade." She left before he could reply, the door closing softly behind her. He stood alone, listening to the rain on the roof, wondering what exactly he had just agreed to, and what it would cost him. The morning light in the alien fortress was dim, filtered through thick clouds and the smoke still drifting over the city. Ethan woke to the sound of armor clinking and voices speaking in the deep, musical tones of the clan's language. When he stepped out of his chamber, Kayla was already waiting in the hall, her armor repaired and polished, her hair bound tightly in braids. "You will fight today," she said without greeting. Ethan frowned. "Fight who?" She started walking, forcing him to keep pace. "The trial of bond, it is our way. When a bond is made through the sword, both must stand together in battle before the eyes of the clan. They will judge if you are worthy." They crossed the fortress courtyard, where warriors were gathering. Some were sharpening blades, others checking the straps on their armor. Every eye followed Ethan, some with curiosity, others with open doubt. The sword at his side seemed to draw more attention than he did. Beyond the courtyard lay a wide arena carved into the ground, its floor packed with dark sand. High walls encircled it, with rows of stone benches where the clan had gathered. The air was thick with anticipation. Ethan saw the elders seated at the highest tier, their expressions unreadable. Kayla led him to the center. "You will follow my lead. Do not drop the blade. Do not step away from me." Before he could answer, a heavy gate at the far end of the arena opened. From the shadows emerged three warriors in dark armor, their faces hidden by narrow masks. They moved with the calm precision of fighters who had done this many times before. Kayla lifted her chin. "They will come for you first. They wish to test your strength." The first warrior charged without warning. Ethan barely had time to raise the sword, the clash of metal ringing in his ears. The force of the blow sent him back a step, but his stance held. The second warrior came in from the side, but Kayla intercepted, her spear darting forward in a quick, brutal strike. Ethan's opponent pressed harder, each strike faster than the last. The alien's style was unlike anything he had trained against, fluid, unpredictable. Ethan adapted quickly, letting the sword's strange balance guide his movements. He parried, sidestepped, and then cut low, the blade finding the gap in the armor. The warrior dropped to one knee, raising a hand in surrender before backing away. The third warrior moved in now, and Kayla joined Ethan, the two of them fighting in perfect rhythm without speaking. Her spear kept their opponent at a distance, while Ethan's sword struck in short, sharp arcs. The crowd roared with approval when the final masked warrior was forced to yield, but the trial was not over. The elders spoke briefly, and the arena gates opened again. This time, a single figure entered, taller, broader, and carrying a massive two-handed axe. The crowd's roar deepened. Kella's expression hardened. "That is Commander Varen." She said, "My clan's champion." Ethan understood immediately. This was the real test. The commander's armor was black and gold, his movements slow but purposeful. When he swung the axe, the air itself seemed to shudder. Kayla darted in from the side, trying to strike his leg, but the commander blocked her with a single sweep of the axe handle. Ethan moved forward, bringing the sword up, and met the commander's next strike head-on. The impact jarred his arms to the bone, but he held firm. They fought in tight circles, Kayla moving with precision, Ethan matching the champion's power. With speed. At one point, the axe caught the edge of Ethan's armor, tearing it open at the side. Pain flared, but he ignored it. Kayla saw the opening and shouted something in her language. Ethan understood the intent. She wanted him to push. He feinted left, drawing the commander's swing wide, then spun to the right. Kayla's spear darted in, striking the champion's exposed leg. The moment he stumbled, Ethan brought the clan sword up in a hard, clean arc, stopping the blade just short of the commander's throat. The arena went silent for a heartbeat. Then the sound returned, louder than before, the crowd chanting in unison. The commander stepped back, lowered his axe, and nodded once to Ethan. It was a gesture of respect. Kayla placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have passed." They left the arena together as the crowd's chanting continued, echoing in the stone corridors. Ethan's muscles ached. His side throbbed where the armor had been split. But the look in the warrior's eyes was different now. There was still doubt in some, but there was also recognition. As they entered the quieter halls of the fortress, Kayla slowed her steps. "You fought well. The bond is stronger now. They will speak of this." Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "I'm not sure I want to be famous here." Her lips curved slightly, just for a moment. "Fame is not choice, it is weight. You carry it now as you carry the sword." They reached a chamber where a healer was waiting. The elder healer, with deep blue skin and eyes like glass, began tending to Ethan's wound in silence. Kayla stood nearby, watching every movement. When the healer finished, Kayla stepped closer, her voice low. "The trial has made you one of us in the eyes of the clan. But in the eyes of our enemies, it has made you a target." Ethan met her gaze, the truth of her words settling in his mind. He had won today, but it was only the beginning of something far more dangerous. The sky was heavy with dark clouds as Ethan followed Kayla out of the fortress gates. The air smelled of wet stone and burned metal. Beyond the walls, the ruins of the city stretched into the distance, collapsed towers, shattered bridges, and streets choked with debris. Patrols moved in small groups, their armor catching the dim light. "This is not a patrol," Kayla said as they walked. "It is a recovery mission, but danger waits in the shadows." Ethan adjusted the sword at his side. "What are we recovering?" She glanced at him. "A relic from the old war. My clan's shield. It was taken when the outer districts fell. Without it, the council fears we cannot call all our banners to defend the city." They moved through a street lined with abandoned market stalls. Strange. Twisted vines had already begun to creep over the stones, their dark leaves moving faintly as if stirred by something unseen. The silence pressed in until the only sound was the crunch of their boots. Their escort was small, 4 warriors in dark blue armor, each armed with long spears. Ethan noticed how their eyes kept scanning the rooftops and alleys. Kayla moved with quiet confidence, but her grip on her spear was firm. They reached a broken archway that opened into a wide plaza. At the center stood a statue of a warrior holding a shield high, though the figure's face had been smashed away. Beyond it, a crumbled building loomed, its doorway swallowed by shadow. "It is inside," Kayla said. The warriors spread out, taking positions around the plaza. Ethan followed Kayla into the building. The air inside was colder, carrying the scent of damp stone and something metallic. Broken beams and shattered furniture lay scattered across the floor. Shafts of pale light filtered through gaps in the ceiling, illuminating dust that hung in the air like mist. They moved deeper, past empty chambers and halls marked by scorch lines from old battles. Finally, they entered a wide room where a single object rested on a raised platform, the shield. It was massive, almost as tall as Ethan, its surface covered in runes that pulsed faintly with blue light. Kayla stepped forward, running her fingers over the edge. "It still lives," she murmured. Ethan reached for the straps, but a sound behind them made him freeze. It was a low, rumbling growl from the shadows. Shapes emerged, tall, lean creatures with glistening skin stretched over powerful muscles. Their eyes reflected the faint blue glow of the shield. Each one carried jagged blades that looked grown rather than forged. Kayla's voice was calm, but tight. "Raid beasts. They follow the scent of the shield. We cannot let them leave with it." The first beast lunged. Ethan's sword was up in an instant, the impact of the blow ringing up his arm. Kayla moved to his side, spear flashing in precise strikes. The beasts were fast, their movements unpredictable, and they fought without fear. Two of them tried to circle around, but the clan warriors outside rushed in, spears clashing against the creature's blades. The room filled with the sounds of metal on metal, guttural snarls, and shouted commands. Ethan found himself fighting back-to-back with Kayla, their movements falling into rhythm just as they had in the trial. When one beast tried to break past him, Kayla swept low with her spear, cutting its legs out from under it, and Ethan drove the sword down in a clean strike. But more shapes moved in the doorway. The beasts kept coming. Kayla shouted something in her language, and one of the warriors tossed her a small cylindrical device. She slammed it into the floor, and a wave of blue energy rippled outward, throwing the nearest beasts back. "Now!" she called. Ethan grabbed the shield from its stand, surprised at its weight. The runes flared brighter the moment his hands touched it. Kayla covered him as they moved toward the exit, the warriors closing in around them. Outside, the plaza was already crawling with more beasts. They dropped from rooftops, their claws scraping against stone. The warriors formed a tight ring around Ethan and Kayla, spears thrusting in quick, deadly arcs. Ethan shifted the shield to his back, freeing his sword, and joined the fight. One beast leapt high, its blade aimed at Kayla's neck. Ethan stepped in, catching the strike with the sword and shoving the creature back. The shield's glow pulsed with each heartbeat, as if reacting to the battle. Finally, the last of the beasts fell, the sand of the plaza dark with their blood. The air was thick with the scent of iron. The warriors stood still for a moment, scanning the streets, but no more enemies came. Kayla looked at Ethan, her chest rising and falling with each breath. "You carried the shield as if you were born to it." Ethan glanced at the glowing runes. "Feels like it's trying to tell me something," she nodded. "Perhaps it is. The old relics choose their bearers. Maybe it sees what I see." They began the long walk back to the fortress, the shield secured, and the streets behind them littered with the fallen. The warriors walked with renewed pride, their voices low as they spoke to each other. But Ethan noticed Kayla's silence. When they reached the gates, she finally spoke. "Today you carried a piece of my people's soul that will not go unnoticed. Some will see it as honor. Others will see it as threat." Ethan knew then that the fight for her clan was not just against enemies on the battlefield. It was also against those within their own walls. The fortress gates closed behind them with a deep metallic boom. Warriors on the walls saluted as Kayla carried the recovered shield to the council chamber. Ethan walked beside her, the clan sword at his side, his steps echoing on the stone floor. The hallways seemed quieter than usual, the faces they passed less open, some hiding behind neutral expressions, others showing a hint of hostility. Inside the council chamber, the elders rose from their seats as Kayla set the shield before them. The runes along its surface still glowed faintly, casting soft blue light across the floor. The eldest among them, the same crimson-skinned figure who had presided over Ethan's binding, stepped forward. "You have returned the heart of the clan," the elder said. "The banners will answer the call." His gaze shifted to Ethan. "And you, human. The shield allowed itself to be carried by your hands. This will be remembered." Not all voices in the room were pleased. Another elder leaned forward, her silver-plated armor gleaming, "Or it will be questioned. It is one thing to bind our daughter to an outsider by law. It is another to let him touch what is sacred." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ethan felt the shift in the air support on one side, suspicion on the other. Kella's expression remained calm, but her stance grew tighter. He carried it because no one else could in that moment. "Would you rather the relic be lost?" The elder's eyes narrowed. "Convenience is not worth the price of tradition." The meeting ended with no resolution, the shield taken away for safekeeping. Outside the chamber, Kayla walked quickly, her voice low. "The elders are divided. Some want you as a symbol of strength. Others see you as an insult to our bloodline." Ethan frowned. "And where does that leave you?" She slowed her steps. "It leaves me watched. Every choice I make will be judged as if it were yours. And some will try to end the bond if they think it weakens us." Before he could answer, a young warrior ran up the hall, his face pale. He spoke rapidly to Kayla in their language. Her eyes narrowed. There was an attack inside the walls. She told Ethan, "Come." They followed the warrior through twisting corridors until they reached a small courtyard. 2 guards lay on the ground, alive but badly wounded. The air smelled of smoke, and a dark stain spread across the stones near the wall. One of the guards coughed, speaking in short, strained words. Kayla knelt to listen, then stood. "They say it was no beast. It was one of our own. Masked, but wearing our armor." They struck without warning and tried to reach the shield chamber. Ethan's hand went to the hilt of his sword. "So this isn't just politics anymore." "No," Kayla said. "It is war inside our gates." That night, the fortress was tense. Patrols doubled, watchfires burned higher, and every sound in the halls made Ethan's hand twitch toward his weapon. Kayla came to his chamber after dark, dressed in lighter armor and moving silently. "We cannot wait for the council," she said. "The traitors will strike again. I will find them before they find us." Ethan followed her into the night. They moved through the fortress like shadows, listening, watching. Twice they passed warriors speaking in hushed tones, who fell silent the moment they saw them dot in the lower halls. Near the storage chambers, Kayla stopped. A faint metallic scrape echoed from ahead. They moved toward it, weapons ready. Around the corner, 3 figures in dark armor worked quickly at the door to a guarded vault. One held a device that sparked against the lock. The moment they saw Kayla and Ethan, they drew blades. The fight was fast and brutal. One of the traitors rushed Kayla, and she met him head-on, her spear striking with lethal precision. Another came for Ethan, their strikes heavy and relentless. He blocked, countered, and with a quick twist, sent the enemy's blade spinning away before knocking them down with the hilt of the sword. The last traitor tried to flee, but Kayla's spear pinned them to the wall by their armor. She pulled off the mask to reveal a young warrior with hard eyes. "Why?" she demanded. The warrior spat on the ground. "Because our blood should not kneel to an outsider. You shame us." The words hung heavy in the narrow hall. Kayla's jaw tightened, but she stepped back, letting the guards drag the prisoner away. When they were alone again, Ethan asked quietly, "You think there are more like him?" Kayla's gaze was steady. "I know there are." They returned to the upper halls as the first light of dawn broke over the city. The fortress was quieter, but the silence felt strained, as if waiting to break. Kayla stopped at the balcony overlooking the city and spoke without turning. "The trial proved you could fight for me. The shield proved you could carry what is ours." But tomorrow will decide if you can lead beside me. That is when our enemies will make their true move." Ethan stood beside her, looking out over the battered skyline. "Then we make sure they regret it." Her lips curved slightly at his words. "We will." The fortress stood under a sky split by fire. Dawn had barely touched the horizon when the first explosion hit the outer wall. The shock rattled stone and sent dust raining down from the ceilings. Ethan was already awake, his sword in hand, when Kayla burst into his chamber, armor strapped tight, her hair bound back. "They're here," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "The traitors have opened the gates for our enemies." They moved fast, the hallways shaking with the echo of distant impacts. Outside, warriors were already clashing in the courtyards, blue and black armor mingling in violent combat. The air was thick with smoke, the metallic scent of blood sharp in Ethan's nose. At the command terrace, the council stood in a tight circle, surrounded by guards. Kayla joined them, speaking quickly in her language. Ethan's eyes swept the chaos below. Enemy forces were flooding in, some wearing stolen clan armor, others dressed in jagged black plates that caught the morning light. One of the elders shouted an order. The warriors began falling back toward the inner wall, drawing the fight into narrower spaces where the attackers' numbers would matter less. Kayla turned to Ethan. "We must reach the shield. If they take it, the clan will fall." They moved together through side corridors toward the vault. Twice they were forced to fight their way through enemy warriors' swift, brutal exchanges where the ring of steel never left Ethan's ears. Kayla's spear struck with perfect precision, every move economical and deadly. Ethan stayed close, blocking blows meant for her, answering each strike with his own. When they reached the vault, the heavy doors were already under attack. A squad of enemy soldiers hammered at the locks while others kept the guards pinned. The traitor they had caught the night before was among them, now unmasked, leading the assault with a voice sharp as a blade. Kayla didn't hesitate. She charged, her spear taking down two before they could react. Ethan moved in behind her, the clan sword cutting through the enemy ranks with ruthless speed. The fight was tight and desperate, the air choked with the sound of metal on metal and the shouts of wounded men. The traitor came for Kayla directly, their blades clashing in a fast, vicious exchange. Ethan saw an enemy aiming for her unguarded side and stepped in, blocking the strike. Pain flared as a blade cut deep into his arm, but he didn't falter. He turned, drove the sword into the attacker, and pulled it free in one motion. Kayla's spear finally found its mark, the traitor dropping to the floor. The rest of the enemy broke under the counterattack, some fleeing, others cut down where they stood. With the vault secured, Kayla placed her palm on the shield. The runes blazed to life, casting a glow across her face. She looked at Ethan. "This must be carried to the front. If our warriors see it, they will fight beyond their limits." Ethan slung the shield across his back, ignoring the sting in his arm. Together they moved back toward the main courtyard, where the battle was reaching its height. The sight that met them was Chaos warriors locked in deadly combat, the clash of weapons echoing off the walls. The enemy pushed hard, their black armored champions cutting a path through the defenders. But when Kayla and Ethan stepped into view, the shield's glow cutting through the smoke, the cry went up from the clan's warriors. The defenders rallied, pressing forward with renewed strength. Ethan fought at Kayla's side, the sword and shield working together as if they had been made for him. Every strike he made seemed to carry the weight of the bond between them, every block with the shield sending shockwaves through the enemies' lines. Kayla moved like the heart of the storm, her spear flashing in arcs of silver, her voice calling commands that cut through the noise. Together they drove the enemy back, step by step, until the outer gates were clear and the attackers began to retreat. When the last of them fled into the smoke, the courtyard was left strewn with the fallen. Warriors leaned on their weapons, their breaths ragged, but their eyes were fixed on Kayla and Ethan. The shield still glowed, the runes pulsing slowly, as if satisfied. The council descended from the terrace. The crimson-skinned elder approached Ethan, his voice carrying for all to hear. Today you have fought as one of us. The sword chose you. The shield accepted you. The bond you made is not just law, it is truth. Kayla stepped forward, placing her hand on Ethan's uninjured arm. He is not just bound to me. He is bound to the clan. The warriors around them struck their armor with their fists, the sound rolling through the courtyard like thunder. Ethan looked at Kayla, and for the first time, he saw no hesitation in her eyes, only trust, and something deeper. Later, when the fires were out and the wounded tended, they stood on the fortress balcony, watching the sky clear. The city was still scarred, but it stood. Kayla turned to him. You came here as an outsider. You stay as my bond, my protector, and my equal. Ethan smiled faintly. Guess I'll need to start learning the language. She looked at him for a long moment before answering. You already speak what matters. And with the city quiet around them, the weight of the sword at his side and the warmth of her presence beside him, Ethan knew the bond they had forged would not be broken by law, by battle, or by time.